Jai Harinam Sankirtana ki Srila Prabhupada ki Antakoti Vaishnavinda ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Anasaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamstra. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi
Radhe
Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Mancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhudevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna Krishna
Krishna
Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, happy Mother's Day to all mothers. Maybe we'll discuss a little bit about Mother's Day today as well. Speaking of sacrifice is very appropriate on Mother's Day, as mothers are known for their great sacrifices for the benefit of others. So, we're discussing this third chapter, this topic entitled Karma Yoga, and how to do action in a way that brings about benefit for us. And Krishna has been speaking about, in the last few verses, about needing to do sacrifice, yajna. And he began to speak in this section in verse 9 that work has to be done for Vishnu as a sacrifice. Otherwise, work causes bondage. Ultimately, work done not as a sacrifice leads to suffering, misery. And so, in the last two verses, 14 and 15, we discussed this basic principle that all of the living entities, they subsist on one thing, ultimately. What is that? Love. But love, we cannot even subsist in this world without one basic thing. Food. Everyone needs some food grain, something to eat. Right? And Krishna explained, where do food grains come from? Rains. Without rains, no food grains will come. And where do rains come from? They come from the performance of yajna. And where do yajnas come from? Prescribed duties. And where do prescribed duties come from? The Vedas. In the Vedas, the various prescribed duties are called out. Prescribed duties means what one should do. And the prescribed duties say you must do yajna. By the performance of yajna, rains come. Without the performance of yajna, will rains come? Will not. And when rains come, then food grains can come. Okay? So it starts with the Vedas. Well, where do the Vedas come from?
From Krishna.
Krishna. So if Krishna did not give the Vedas, and within the Vedas he did not give the yajnas, the prescribed duties, which tell us to do yajna, then how would we exist? Would we have any means of existence? So the important point from these last two verses is we have no independent existence. Our entire existence is dependent on the mercy of Krishna. We are fully dependent for the most basic of activities. We think we only need God when some big exam is coming. I only need God when there's some difficulty in my life. I only need God when I need to pray for some success in some important endeavor in my life. My child is getting married, my child is going through college applications, my child is doing this, my spouse needs that. That's when I need God, right? That is our conventional wisdom. It is no wisdom, it is ignorance. Because when do we need the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Always. We are fully dependent on the Lord. So because we are dependent on the Lord for His provisions, the Lord is saying, you must do sacrifice. And what is the meaning of sacrifice? We throw some grains into the fire. That is sacrifice. That is one form of sacrifice. But what is sacrifice?
When we do the job and like we earn the money, part of it we need to give back to as a process of saying thanks.
Control our senses.
Control our senses. Give part of it back to the Lord. So I'm going to say that not part of it, all of it. Where all of it came from. So why we should only give part of it? Wow. Now everyone's going to pack up and go home. I've had enough. Right? Everything we have is coming from the mercy of the Lord. Right? So He is saying, you do sacrifice. But He isn't saying you do sacrifice a little bit. Part of it. He is saying everything you do should be an act of sacrifice. Because if we do not, let's say we are 50-50. Just 50% is sacrifice, 50% is not. What is the result of that other 50% of activities which is not a sacrifice? What is the result for us?
Result of the karmic reactions we will get.
We get karmic reactions. Karmic reactions means then what? Rebirth. Rebirth means misery. Misery. We want 50% misery, 50% happiness? What do we want? 100% happiness. Krishna said already, without yajna, there is misery, difficulty. So we can do part yajna if we want part happiness. We can do full yajna if we want full happiness. Now the difficulty is seeing the path of happiness from sacrifice. Right? Because in our materially contaminated understanding, sacrifice means I lose and the recipient of sacrifice wins. Right? That's when we say sacrifice, we think, oh. Immediately that feeling comes. I have to give up something for someone else. And that is actually true in the material context. But remember, everything spiritual is a reflection, inverted. When you try to read letters in a mirror, how do they look? They're flipped. Are the letters flipped? No, they just appear to be flipped. So everything we see in the material world is like looking into a mirror, looking into a reflection. Krishna will explain in the 15th chapter. So sacrifice, in the spiritual sacrifice, actually means that the performer of yajna gains fully. Nothing is lost. And we know when we do sacrifice to Vishnu, what is he really going to gain from our sacrifice? Does he need for his subsistence our food grains? Will chapatis not come to him if we don't offer? Will he not get ghee? Will he not get some money, some shelter? No. He'll get everything, whether we give or not. So in yajna, we have to remember, we are the beneficiary. When we have faith that we are the beneficiary of yajna, then how much yajna we'll do? Full yajna. Now, the art or the understanding we have to figure out, as grahastas, as living entities, most of us are grahastas, how we can do yajna. Because when we say do all yajna, then we think, well, what will happen to my family? What will happen to my loved ones? Right? Well, Krishna says that is also part of yajna. And in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni is explaining to Yudhishthira Maharaj the ideal householder life. And he explains how to do full yajna. So let's read the 16th verse, and then we'll discuss further. This will convince us of this, either we should do part yajna or full yajna. Someone wants to read?
evam pravartitam cakram nanuvartayatiha aghayur indriyaramo mogham partha jivati. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. Purport. The Mammonist philosophy of work very hard and enjoy sense gratification is condemned herein by the Lord. Therefore, for those who want to enjoy this material world, the above mentioned cycle of performing yajnas is absolutely necessary. One who does not follow such regulation is living a very risky life, being condemned more and more. By nature's law, the human form of life is specifically meant for self-realization in either of the three ways, namely Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga. There is no necessity of rigidly following the performances of the prescribed yajnas for the transcendentalists who are above vice and virtue. But those who are engaged in sense gratification require purification by the above mentioned cycle of yajnas performances. There are different kinds of activities. Those who are not Krishna conscious are certainly engaged in sensory consciousness. Therefore, they need to execute pious work. The yajna system is planned in such a way that a sensory consciousness person may satisfy their desires without becoming entangled in the reaction of sense gratificatory work. The prosperity of the world depends not on our own efforts, but on the background arrangement of the Supreme Lord, directly carried out by the demigods. Therefore, the yajnas are directly aimed at the particular demigod mentioned in the Vedas. Indirectly, it is the practice of Krishna consciousness, because when one masters the performance of yajnas, one is sure to become Krishna conscious. But if by performing yajnas one does not become Krishna conscious, such principles are counted as only moral codes. One should not therefore limit his progress only to the point of moral codes, but should transcend them to attain Krishna consciousness.
Okay. So, we see in this verse, Krishna is specifically speaking about a certain type of yagyas, and Srila Prabhupada is guiding us to whether we should and need to perform those types of yagyas or not. So we'll kind of set that topic aside for a few moments. Then Prabhupada comments on the purpose of these different yagyas. And we had this question last time, why all these yagyas in the Vedas are there, and what is the purpose of them? So Prabhupada is specifically commenting here. So let's start though at the very beginning, which is where we were discussing in the introduction. Now, what happens when one does not follow the cycle of sacrifice? According to Krishna's statement here. Full of sin. Why is it considered sin if I am not doing sacrifice?
Very risky.
It's a risky life. Why is it sinful if I'm just, enjoying my life, going around here and there?
It's like cheating. We take something from Krishna and not giving it back.
What are we trying to enjoy?
Senses,
Our own senses. And how do we enjoy our senses? By using all the facilities of the world, right? No restraints. So who is provisioning all of those resources we're using? Krishna. So if we don't acknowledge who is giving, if you go to the store, you think, this is a nice object, thank you very much, and I'll walk out. It's very nice. What have we forgotten in that process? Who is the proprietor of that item? To obtain that item, I must give some remuneration. Otherwise, I'm a thief and I'll be punished. So Krishna is saying, if you don't do sacrifice, you're going to live a life full of sin. But he goes further. He says, mogham. Anyone knows what mogham means? Or you can look in the word. Not desire. You can read the word by word translation. Useless. What is useless if we don't do sacrifice, Krishna is saying? Life is useless. He says, living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. Vain means no purpose, useless, baseless. Now this is a very strong statement by Krishna. Because what are all of us, before we come to Krishna consciousness, what are we doing? What is the whole goal of life?
Serving.
No, before coming to Krishna.
Just enjoying life.
Eat, drink, and be merry. Just enjoy. Right? That is the whole goal of life. And what does this mammalist philosophy say? Anyone knows what that means?
Work very hard and typical American philosophy.
Work hard.
Yeah. Typical philosophy. make your own destiny. Create your own path. You work hard, you play hard. The more you work, the more you'll get, and the more you can enjoy. Right? And that's what we tell our children. You study very hard, you get a good education, you become a nice doctor, engineer, lawyer, some nice profession, and then you can enjoy your life. Everything up to enjoy your life was actually good. You get a good. And then we should say you enjoy with Krishna your life. Just add with Krishna. And then everything becomes perfect. All those other instructions become perfect. When we say you enjoy your life with Krishna. Because otherwise we are living in vain. Mogham. Uselessly. Because every endeavor to enjoy our senses is going to lead to misery. If I am putting forth some effort and every time I'm getting failure, right? Every time I try to hit the ball over the net, it goes into the net. What is the value of my efforts? Useless. It's failing every time, right? So what is the value of trying to enjoy my senses without Krishna, without sacrifice? There is no success. Right? So Prabhupada comments that the prosperity of the world depends not on our own efforts, but what does prosperity of the world depend on? In the middle of towards the end of the purport. The prosperity of the world depends not on our own efforts, but arrangements of the Supreme Lord. But because it's in the background, we fail to miss it until we come to knowledge. We don't see it. Just like the child in the home doesn't see all the arrangements mother and father are doing to put forth a nice environment for the child to prosper. Right? They see play, they see food, but they don't see all the other things that go into it. So similarly, we don't see the arrangements of the Lord. But no matter how much we work, we cannot control our own destiny. The example is given of the farmer. The farmer may cultivate the fields very expertly. The farmer may plant the seeds very properly. With all that effort, if rain and sun do not come, will there be any result from that effort? Is the farmer have full control of the production of the field? They're dependent on the arrangement of
Law.
Krishna. Right? So everything is dependent on the arrangement of the Lord. So this idea of do your own, it doesn't fly. And we have practical example of that. Right? Prabhupada would give the example that, and Krishna began to speak this karma mimamsa philosophy to Nanda Maharaj when he was getting him to stop this Indra Puja and the whole pastime of Govardhan Lila. And in that, Prabhupada comments that it is not in our own hands. Success is not in our own hands. The doctor tries his best and best to save the sick person. But is he always successful? But because it's not in our own hands, does that mean we don't have our role, our part? No. If the farmer who's cultivating the field does not cultivate the field, does not plant the seed, then when rains and sun come, will anything grow? If the seeds are not planted, if the field is not cultivated, will anything grow? No. So both effort is required on our part and mercy from Krishna is required. Both go hand in hand. Because we are not in a control doesn't mean, well then, I just do nothing. Then nothing will happen also. We must do our part. But then remember, who is the provider? And when we remember who is the provider, then sacrifice becomes so easy. Right? So what is our biggest reservation in doing sacrifice?
Lose.
We'll lose. Right? We'll lose. So if we see that we'll win, then will we do sacrifice? Huh? Easily? We'll do part sacrifice or full sacrifice? Huh? Sure? Okay. So then let's analyze. Who wins in sacrifice and who loses without sacrifice? We've already discussed. When you don't do sacrifice, what are we considered? Thief. And a thief is punished. Sins. Laws of karma. Whether we believe it or not doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether we... That is a fact. Whether I believe in gravity or not, it exists. Doesn't matter whether it's there. So whether I believe it or not, by enjoying the facilities that are not mine, difficulty will come. Right? So Krishna is saying, don't live your life in vain, live it to its full potential. Right? So what would we define as success by doing sacrifice? What is the success we are searching for? Happiness. That's it? Ultimately, that is the success we are looking for? Is happiness. Right? So how to find success? From sacrifice or not sacrifice? So let's see. When we do sacrifice to Krishna, what do we get in receipt back? What is the result of sacrifice to Krishna?
He's pleased.
Krishna is pleased. And what happens when Krishna is pleased?
He gives you special consideration.
He gives you special consideration.
Mercy.
Mercy.
He is always with us, even whether it's difficulty or good time, he is always with us.
He is always with us in difficulty and good times.
And he guides you in the right direction because you're looking for.
He guides you in the right direction. He's holding our hand, saying, let's go this way, not that way. That way is dangerous. What else is the result of sacrifice to Krishna?
We are peaceful.
We are peaceful. Why are we peaceful?
Because we are not thief anymore.
Because we are not thief anymore.
We will not be punished anymore.
Will not be punished anymore. But should we just do sacrifice to Krishna so we're not punished? That sounds like, well, I don't want to just avoid punishment. I want to enjoy. Right? I want to be in bliss, happiness. So how is sacrifice to Krishna going to yield bliss and happiness? The sacrifice to me sounds like misery. What is the nature of the soul?
The nature of the soul is to serve and be.
Nature of the soul is to serve, to find happiness. It is ananda, full of bliss. And the soul must serve. It must serve someone. So we have two choices. Either to serve our own senses or to serve Krishna's senses. Those are the only two options we have. Are there any other options? Either I serve my own senses or I serve Krishna's senses. And how will I decide which path I'll take?
Free will.
I had the free will to choose.
Based on the
And so how will I decide between option A and option B? Serving Krishna's senses or serving my senses?
whatever gives more happiness.
What gives me the best happiness? Right? So we know by serving our own senses, as Krishna says here, living his life only for the satisfaction of the senses, a person lives in vain. Because there is so much resultant suffering. But what happens when one lives for the pleasure of Krishna's senses? One finds eternal bliss and happiness. So serving Krishna's senses is not just to avoid sin, to avoid punishment. We don't want our children just to live to avoid punishment. We want them to be happy. That is life. Life begins when we have some bliss and happiness, engagement of peace. So Krishna, our soul is eternally connected with the Supreme Lord, part and parcel of the Lord. And our peace and happiness only comes when we are in loving service of the Lord. My hand only gets enjoyment when it is in serving the body, because it is part of my body. Our soul, being part and parcel of Krishna, only finds happiness when it is connected to Krishna. So, when we begin to take to Krishna consciousness, everything we do in Krishna consciousness is sacrifice. Chanting. How many find some positive pleasure in result from chanting? Everyone. But that is a sacrifice. What are we sacrificing? Time. Sleep. Energy. It is a sacrifice. Going to the temple and singing and dancing with the Lord, that is a sacrifice. But do we experience this sacrifice that we think of in a material context? What do we experience? Bliss and happiness. Almost you cannot even describe it. There is such an experience. Even the act of rendering some menial service, like washing some pots, or serving someone else some foodstuffs, chopping vegetables. What is the experience? It's indescribable bliss. Because that activity is being done for Krishna's pleasure. And thus Krishna reciprocates. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. To the degree of our surrender, the Lord reciprocates back. So we have practical examples. Our own sacrifice to the Lord results in this happiness that we can't even explain. It would seem that going and cleaning the floors would be a miserable experience. Do we enjoy cleaning the floors of our own house? No. But then you go in the temple and you do that same activity, the same physical activity, not the same spiritual activity, the same physical activity, and there is an indescribable bliss and happiness. So we have very practical examples. The sacrifice done with Krishna, there is such a reciprocation of the Lord. So when we say sacrifice to the Lord, it means to enjoy with Him. That's it. It means to enjoy with the Lord. But with Krishna is the main thing. As soon as we try to enjoy without the Lord, we lead to suffering. Because it is not our natural position. It carries sinful reactions, which will then misery will be forced upon us. Honoring prasadam, that is so miserable. As soon as you say Mahaprasade Govinda, everybody's alert. We are ready for sacrifice. Honoring Krishna prasadam is also sacrifice. How many of us cannot do that sacrifice? What are we sacrificing? We are first sacrificing we're sacrificing the first taste for us to be the first taste for Krishna. So sacrificed with Krishna is full of bliss and happiness. It is not, hey, you endure in difficult sacrifice to Krishna for the hope that in the future, later, you'll experience some happiness. No, every step in the way, it is happiness. So now, are we going to do part sacrifice for Krishna or full sacrifice for Krishna? And who benefits when we do full sacrifice? We benefit. It is the only way to find peace and happiness. And Krishna says, Bhaktaram yagnatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suradam sarva bhutanam nyakpa mam shantim richati. Shantim. We want peace. How it is obtained? When we know these three things. Bhaktaram yagnatapasam. Krishna is the beneficiary of all yajna, all sacrifice. He is Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. He is the source of all the planets and demigods. And 3, He is our ever well-wisher. He is our protector. He is our provider. He is our maintainer. He loves us more than we even love Him. Always there for us. When we know these 3 things, then we'll find peace. So these Vedic sacrifices now, I said we'll come to it in the end. What is the purpose of these Vedic sacrifices? Are they the same as Krishna consciousness? No, they are not. What are the Vedic sacrifices? These different sacrifices enjoined in the Vedas? Yajnas for
demigods.
Which give some material enjoyment. Right? The yajna for Krishna gives us spiritual enjoyment. Material enjoyment is temporary and limited. Spiritual enjoyment is unlimited and eternal. Right? So why within the Vedas, which are given by Krishna, would He then give these sacrifices? What is the purpose of these yajnas? These specific yajnas. Slowly we will attain Krishna consciousness. Develop faith. Because we're so fixed on our desire for sense gratification, Krishna is so merciful. He says, okay, you want to enjoy your senses? I'll give you a way to supercharge your enjoyment. But you do sacrifice. So Krishna is saying, okay, you cannot give up you don't see how sacrificing for me will give you happiness? You cannot see that? Fine. Let me give you a process. You do these yajnas, you'll get the material enjoyments you want. And by continuing to do these yajnas, you will slowly see who is the ultimate beneficiary, who is the source of everything. And you will slowly start to search for eternal benefits. And that will bring you to Krishna. But if these yajnas don't bring one to Krishna consciousness, what is the value of these yajnas? Krishna says, or Prabhupada says, they're just moral codes. They're better than immoral codes, but they're just moral codes. They will not yield the ultimate goal. So these sacrifices now that are enjoined in the Vedas, when one has come to Krishna consciousness, must they perform these sacrifices? Do they need to perform these sacrifices? I'm saying some yes, some no. That's good. No? Why not?
Because we are offering directly to Krishna, so we don't need to go through that process of serving the demigods. Because once we are watering the roots, so everything gets.
Okay. So, Mataji said, by watering the roots, all the branches of the tree are nourished. By being Krishna conscious, we are going to the ultimate source, and thus all dependent entities are thus pleased. Okay, so that's one reason. Anyone else have any other ideas?
Devotees do not want material gains.
Devotees are not interested in material gains because material gains do create suffering. They create more taste for those material gains. The more we enjoy pizza, the more we want. The more we enjoy movies, the more we want. And the devotee knows that is just leading to suffering. So for that reason also, they don't perform. So in Krishna consciousness, by serving Krishna, it is not that the sacrifices are not due to all the different devatas who are facilitating our existence. We owe them yajna. But to satisfy those obligations, one with knowledge knows how best to satisfy those obligations. So we should not think we don't owe the devatas our respect. Because we owe them, because they are facilitating our existence. But one in knowledge knows how to reciprocate with all of those debts. And that is by worshipping Krishna. Because Krishna says, if you water the root of the tree, all the branches are nourished. He'll say at the end of the 8th chapter, we were reading on Friday, that all the benefits performed by all other processes is included within bhakti. Bhakti is the all-in-one process. And it also adds one more feature of entrance to the spiritual world. But by doing bhakti, everything is included. Just like if I say I have $1 million, well then I also have $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100. All of that's included. So by doing devotional service to Krishna, one is performing all of the different sacrifices required. And so what are the prescribed duties of the devotee of Lord Krishna? What is the prescribed duty? Chanting. And where do the prescribed duties come from the devotee of the Lord? From Shastra and Guru. How we will understand Shastra, how we can understand what is the message Krishna is trying to give us. Through Guru. Guru guides how to apply this. Now we'll go back to the very first statement, which is our inclination was we should do part sacrifice, right? That is a natural inclination. We all do it. Trust me, whether we admit it or not. That is our natural inclination. And why do we want to do part sacrifice? So theoretically we know what is better, part sacrifice or full sacrifice? Because if it's 50-50, 50% that sacrifice will lead to happiness, and the 50% that is not sacrifice will lead to misery. So on paper we know 100% sacrifice, right? But now the difficult thing is to bring it on paper into practice. And Guru is who guides us on how to do that, how to bring it into practice. Because we have some hesitations. That if I give everything to Krishna, what is our fear?
How will I survive?
What will I get?
How will I survive? Where my chapatis will come? Right? And that is a natural concern. If I give everything to Krishna, how I will survive? Anybody does not have that question or doubt? We all do. It's very natural. If we don't, it would be irresponsible. And in this 7th canto, this ideal householder life, there was a wonderful class yesterday by Gopal Krishna Maharaj in Vrindavan about this chapter. And in this chapter, Narada Muni is saying to Yudhishthira Maharaj that as a householder, one must work and create facilities. Because they have responsibilities to protect their families, to establish some shelter for themselves. They're not living off of anyone else's maintenance as the grahastha ashram. But he says, so one must earn income, but one must use that income 100% in the service of Krishna. So now how to do that? Does that mean the paycheck comes and I drop the paycheck in the hundi? Well, now I'm abandoning one of my grahastha responsibilities, which is to maintain my family. Now our Muni says, you should not be attached to wife and husband and children. You should not be attached? Does that mean I just leave them to fend for themselves? He says, don't be attached to their body. Their body is going to become stool or ashes. I don't like to think that way. But where is this body going after 50, 100 years? It's going to become, either it's going to be eaten by the animals and turned into stool, or it's going to be burned or buried and turned into ashes. So don't attach to stool and ashes. What do we attach to? The soul. So in our family, we are attached to the safe journey of their soul. So the attachment should be not on the bodily platform, but on the spiritual platform. And so in attaching to their soul, we know we must engage them in Krishna consciousness. So the grihastha must perform various activities that facilitate one's progress in devotional service. So we maintain our family, but not maintain our family to live a life mogham, uselessly, in vain, but to maintain the family to live their life in Krishna consciousness. So we're going to feed our children and our wife and our husband and everyone. But we're going to feed them? Prasadam. We're going to maintain a home for them. But we're going to maintain a home as a temple. We're going to bring deities into our home and establish this is Shri Gaurnitai's home. Not Anand Prabhu and Nirmala Prema Mataji's home. This is Shri Gaurnitai's home. Everything done here is for their pleasure. So paying rent is for maintaining Krishna's apartment, not our own. The foodstuffs we buy are made for their pleasure, not our own. But when we serve Krishna, do we get the benefit also? Of course. We buy a car. What do we use the car for? Krishna's service. Does that mean the car can only go to the temple and back? When it goes to the office, that is also Krishna's service. Because the fruits coming from the office work are used to maintain our home, to maintain the temple, to distribute prasadam, to buy books. These different activities are there. So now do we see we can be part yajna or full yajna? Will we be left behind in full yajna? No. So the trick is to figure out how to be full yajna while maintaining our bodies, maintaining our family, maintaining our society, maintaining our relationships. How to do it with Krishna. So we should at least deeply embed in our heart full yajna, and maybe the how is still a little bit of a question mark. And that is where Guru comes and helps guide us on the particular details of how to practice full yajna. Because we have faith that Krishna says, without yajna my life is mogham, useless. So Krishna consciousness is the ultimate yajna. These preliminary yajnas performed within the Vedas are for the point of coming to bhakti. Once one has come to bhakti, one has no need to perform these other yagyas. They are already included within bhakti. Clear? They are already included within bhakti. And our goal should be how to perform bhakti 100% of the time. And the prescribed duties that are there for the devotee of the Lord, they come from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. The Guru guides us. This is what you should do. The Vedas guide what our prescribed duties are based on our various desires. But when our desire comes to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we find Guru who will guide us how to please Krishna. And so life must be full of yajna, and we must know what kind of yajna to do. And we see sacrifice, though it has a negative connotation, it implies, oh, I'm going to lose. In the spiritual sacrifice, we only gain. And when we sacrifice our time to offer foodstuffs to the Lord, we gain. When we sacrifice our time to clean the floor of the temple of the Lord, we gain. When we sacrifice our time to do anything for Krishna. And if we don't believe it, just try it and we'll experience it. So, this is the importance of sacrifice. Any comments or questions?
Some people always ask that, like, when we say sacrifice, it is given by Krishna, why again we have to give it to him? That's what the
Yeah.
many people question us, like, if we say this is what it is, we have to offer and take it. They question this way. It's all given by Lord, why should we again do it?
So the question is, if everything is given by Krishna, then why we should give to him, right? Well, remember, that philosophy makes sense if what we are giving to Krishna is that fruit or that vegetable or that grain. But what are we actually giving to the Lord? Our love. He says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati. It is the love that we are offering to the Lord. So now you ask that person, should we offer our love to Krishna? Yeah, we don't have to offer the apple or the fruit. That Krishna has plenty of apples. What he is longing for is our love. And remember, Krishna doesn't benefit by us giving him this stuff. So then that same person you can ask, what is your benefit by giving back to the Lord? Your benefit is giving some acknowledgement to who has provisioned it. So whether the Lord has given, yes, the Lord has given, but what is our responsibility to reciprocate back? It's just like when the mother or father buys a child an ice cream. And the child opens the ice cream. And then he offers the first bite to mother or father. Does the child have to do that? No. Mother or father gave the ice cream to the child. So what is the need? There is no actual need. But what happens when child gives to mother and father the first bite?
They're happy.
Pleased. And then will mother eat the whole ice cream? They won't even take one bite. They'll say, no, you enjoy. So the sacrifice to Krishna is our opportunity to express our love. That is it. All of our devotional service is simply but an expression of our love.
I got one thing, can I express my...
Please?
I don't know whether it is wrong. Actually, everything should know that this is a temporary place because we have given the free will to choose, so we have away from the God. To claim it is a temporary place. To know the God, first we should express our love, then the place will be secured in the Golden Purnami.
Yeah, that's nicely said. This world is a beautiful place if we connected with Krishna. Right? Yeah, it's a beautiful place. When we say Dukhalayam and Ashashvatam, it's a wonderful spiritual place of bliss when it is connected with Krishna. The Dukhalayam goes away. The Ashashvatam goes away. Yes, everything material remains temporary and full of misery, but if I am now in Krishna consciousness, I am in a different realm.
So we should express our gratitude so that he can know that whether we are conscious or not. So how can we express? To offer something. Then he will recognize us, so our place will be secure.
Yeah.
Sorry, fam.
No, it's very nice. It's a perfect understanding. It's perfect. You have a question?
No, it says like, but if performing yajnas, one does not become Krishna conscious. Right. So you're doing all these yajnas. Is there a way that we cannot become Krishna conscious?
Yeah. If we don't have the right guidance, we'll keep performing these yagyas, and sometimes we can be attached to the material fruits, and that further inquiry, we begin to stop this inquiry. This atato brahma jignasa, we must inquire. If the inquiry stops of how I can get more, where it's coming from, who is doing all this, then yeah, it can stop. And you see, many people practice spirituality, and it is mostly pious entertainment. Even the practice of spirituality is just to get some internal feel good, and then go back to all kinds of nonsensical activities. And that can carry on for decades. It can go on for generations. Right? One does something feeling out of obligation or out of fear, not out of love. Right? Sometimes we worship the Lord not out of love, but out of fear. If I don't, something bad will happen. Or out of obligation. It's expected of me. Expected of me by my mother, father, by my society, by uncle, something. So I do it. It's still better than not doing it. But ultimately, we want to come to the point of doing it out of love. Not out of obligation, not out of fear, not out of... So if we do these yagyas, and we don't continue to inquire and think, we can be stuck and not progress. And that is why Krishna is going to say, give it all up. Sarva dharmam prityaja. Give up all other dharma. Because coming to bhakti is the safest, securest, most blissful, easiest, best path. You'll enjoy along the way. It's easier than doing all these elaborate yagyas. You'll get my help, my mercy, direct involvement. And it's secure. Going this step-by-step gradual process, you may stop somewhere. You may not get to the end. And then everything you've done hasn't really... It's mogham. Living in vain. Because these yagyas are giving us basically regulated sense enjoyment. The karma kanda process is regulated sense enjoyment. It's better than unregulated sense enjoyment. Unregulated sense enjoyment means I enjoy however I want. I want to eat flesh, I'll eat flesh. I want to do this, I'll do this. Regulated sense enjoyment means, I want to accomplish something, I have to follow a certain process, a certain yagya. But the goal is still sense enjoyment. One is slightly better than the other, but if it doesn't progress to bhakti, then, and it is very possible, and that is why it's not recommended. Because as we begin to enjoy our senses, our possibilities, we become attached to this temporary happiness. If no one told us that there is a spiritual realm beyond where we live today, if no one told us and explained to us the eternal nature of the soul, if no one explained to us this relationship we have with Krishna, what was our goal of life? What was our goal of life prior to coming to this knowledge? Enjoy the senses as best we can. Right? And who opened our eyes? Krishna and Srila Prabhupada have opened our eyes to this knowledge. And we should do for others. Yeah.
When we take human birth, suppose it's already decided that this person will come to Krishna consciousness or his life will be wasted without coming to Krishna. Is it
Yeah.
how it is?
So the question is, when we come to human birth, is it already decided whether that person will come to Krishna consciousness or his life will be wasted? Thank you for expressing it. It's factual, yeah, you're right. No, it is not determined. It is not predestined. The soul has free will to decide whether it'll come to Krishna consciousness or not. Now, the chances of it coming to Krishna consciousness are based on its prior actions. So Krishna will explain in the 8th chapter, Attaining the Supreme, that if one has performed some devotional service but has not yet completed its process, it will come back in the human form of life in some very rich family or very spiritual family. And that will give it a higher chance of continuing on. Based on our past desires, past what we call agna sukriti, past good deeds, the jiva will be brought into association with the devotees. And the devotees, like Srila Prabhupada, try to even go beyond that and make this available to anyone and everyone. Even if their sukriti does not suggest they should have a chance to come to Krishna consciousness. And that was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's vision. Every town and village, the holy names will be chanted. Why? So everyone would have a chance to hear the holy names. Develop that impression in the heart. And ultimately the desire, I should become Krishna conscious, can manifest. Because we all have free will. No one is destined to be a sinner. No one is destined to be away from Krishna. We all have the opportunity. And when you see Srila Prabhupada came, you think those people in the lower Manhattan in the 60s were destined to become pure devotees of the Lord? No, Prabhupada created their opportunity by the purity of his devotion. A pure devotee can do that. A pure devotee brings the holy Dham wherever they go. He manifested the holy Dham in the most hellish of places. And he purified those souls and gave them full Krishna consciousness. So, and our job is to take what Srila Prabhupada gave us and try to give it to as many people as we can. Make it available, make it known. Try to turn on the light switch. As someone has done for us, we can do for others. But it is not destined. There's a people do say that, you know, and it is out of ego. Oh, only you people can come and serve. These people cannot. If you're born in this family, then you can be a devotee. If you're not born in this family, you cannot be a devotee. Krishna is the father of every living entity. It is only based on our desire. That is the only qualification for bhakti.
When he was saying that if the spiritual journey is not complete, then they will take birth in a Krishna conscious family or in a rich family. But why in Shastras they are talking about a rich family? I mean, again that, why?
Yeah. Actually, it said that depending on the progressive of how far, if you've done a little bit of service and haven't finished, you're more likely to take birth in an aristocratic family. But if you've completed almost everything and then didn't finish, you'd come into a Vaishnava Brahminical family. Because that is better than an aristocratic. But in an aristocratic rich family, the basic necessities are taken care of. So now one doesn't fear for one's existence and has the likelihood to come to that. And one's richness comes from their piety. Now that piety can turn into also, but it is also why we should not think, well, I'll make some progress now and I'll leave the rest up. Because if we take birth in a rich family, we may be attached to that wealth and forget again Krishna. How we know that Bhagavad Gita as it is will cross our eyes? How we know we'll have a chance to see Shri Shri Radha Kunj Vihari ever again? How we know we'll have a chance to come in contact with a bona fide guru? So Prabhupada said, yes, though it is true, you finish your business this lifetime. This bhakti process is so potent, it can be finished in this lifetime. And he said, if you follow my instructions, I will take you back myself. He said he had the back door key. But you finished now.
Isn't it the truth that spiritual guru which you have, that will be not only guru for this life but all
It's an
life?
eternal
So
relationship.
then, if for some reason one takes rebirth, then how will you connect?
Because
that?
Guru has to come back. Guru has to come back until all of his disciples are delivered. And thus, we should take shelter of Guru, we should take initiation of Guru, and then we should make sure our Guru doesn't have to come back for us.
Because of our miseries, we should not suffer.
Yeah, because of us, it's a big, such a big.
It's a big responsibility, but also gigantic opportunity. With opportunity comes responsibility. If I'm driving a fancy car, that's a nice opportunity, big responsibility. If I have a big fancy house, big opportunity, big responsibility. If I bring children into the world, big opportunity, big responsibility. To accept the lotus feet of a spiritual master, you cannot understand the magnitude of the opportunity. We don't even understand its value. But also responsibility. Responsibility to follow the instruction of Guru. It's a two-way street. Guru takes responsibility for us, and we take responsibility to follow. Just like our relationship with Krishna is a two-way street. You have a question?
Whenever, though we know that Vishnu and Krishna is same, right? So, but if you stand in front of Vishnu, the way you kind of provide your obeisances is different. From you go and stand in front of Krishna, it's different. And so with some of the slokas we learned that we always say that Krishna Paramastu, or Krishna Paramatma is what is being taught to us. But then, like, though it has been taught to us, but in our family, if you see, we are more Vishnu based. So why is this confusion happens? Is it with our own mental concoction that is kind of making us like this?
Vishnu Krishna, as you know, one person manifested in two different features or personalities. Vishnu is worshipped with awe and reverence, and Krishna is worshipped with this intimate love and relationship. And we say to each his own, meaning some have an affinity or an attachment to serving the Lord in this awe and reverential mood, and some have an affinity to serving Krishna in this more intimate mood. Now, on an absolute basis, there is a more intense love with Krishna. It is just like your relationship, we say, with the Supreme Court judge is very formal. But that same judge, when he takes off his hat, takes off the robe, and is in the park with his friends, has a very intimate relation. The person is the same, but you can say the relationship that exists in the park is much more deeper, full, complete. Whereas in the courtroom, it is a very formal, it's a subset relationship, right? So on an absolute basis, the relationship with Krishna is the ultimate. And in the 11th canto of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna shows his universal form to Arjuna. Arjuna asks. Then he shows his Narayan form, his four-armed form. And then Arjuna asks, now let me see again your original form, your two-armed form. So the original form of Krishna is his two-armed form, flute in hand, peacock feather, threefold bending in Goloka. That is the original. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. From Krishna, everything else comes. So, but not everyone knows that. They haven't studied the Shastra, haven't studied Srimad Bhagavatam, where this is explicitly given. He said in Bhagavad Gita, Ham Sarvasya Prabhavo, I am the source of everything. That would include Lord Vishnu. He says in the 7th chapter, there is no truth superior to me. That would also include. He showed in the 11th chapter, universal form, Lord Narayan, and then Krishna. Right? So we have a choice. No, there's no bad choice. There's no, but the ultimate, most potent form of love is between us, and it's just like between you and your father and mother. The relationship of respect is there, but it's most complete when there's love. When there's that, and there's love within respect too, don't get me wrong. But the love that's there when there is that, intimate, little bit more casual experience, that is more intense. But we have to be careful in that casual experience. We don't become what we call familiar, because familiarity breeds contempt. Right? So we must purify under the process of Guru and Sadhu and Sashtra, so that we can have that relationship with Krishna. But that is the ultimate. There is no more rasa to experience than that rasa with Krishna and Golok Vrindavan. Nothing. That is the highest. But there's nothing wrong with one who is worshipping. Just like if you have $1 billion, there's nothing wrong with having $1 million. Is there? Anything wrong? No. But you can also say you have more than that. Also is fact. Right? So we have to be careful as Krishna Bhaktas. We don't think, they're Vishnu Bhaktas. That is so offensive and heinous. Do not develop that mindset. Because that can develop if we don't have the understanding. We become proud, egotistic. I'm worshipping Krishna. That is foolish also. You had a question, Mataji?
Two questions I have. First is, we have seen the Vedic rituals given in the Vedas. That is kind of like most mechanical. Like if you don't do it, is full of sin. If we do, it is good. So why does ultimately Krishna wants love from us? So why this Vedic rituals has been mandated on the human beings? Can we understand that this mechanical sacrifices will ultimately lead to the love? Like, will the love starts from the sacrifice? Can we understand that?
So the question is why these mechanical sacrifices, let's call them the karma conduct sacrifices, are there.
To develop the love. Ultimately we have to.
It must come to the point of love of Krishna. That's bhakti. If it doesn't come to the path of bhakti, there is no value in it. Prabhupada says it's just a moral code.
But how it will turn from the
How it'll happen.
mechanical thing, sacrifice, can
Well,
turn
it's
into-
difficult. It's difficult for that karma kanda process to turn into love. It's difficult. It takes a long time. How long? Many, many lifetimes. So don't do it, is the first thing. Nobody takes the long, hard path when the short, easy path is just as easily available. If both options are available to us, we'll take the shortest, fastest, easiest path. So how it happens? One has to go through many yagyas to develop some faith that there is some higher power. Then, one develops some faith that by doing certain yagyas, I'll get a higher next life. By believing in next life, some consciousness of soul has begun to manifest in the heart. Otherwise, what's next life? If I'm just this body, there's no next. Something eternal must continue on. Something from here must go there in order for there to be a higher life. So now some nature of the soul, some knowledge of the soul has come. Not part and parcel of Krishna yet, just, some energy is there. And I enjoy in the heavenly planets, and I do some more sacrifices even there, and maybe get some more enjoyment. But I know tick, 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 meaning the time that I can enjoy is counting down. Do I enjoy that? When I'm on vacation, do I enjoy the fact that each day I'm waiting to come back? What do I want?
Unlimited.
I want to stay longer. So then, hopefully, one will begin to inquire, wait a minute, why is this all temporary? I've already gone from one life to this life, and I'm doing all these yagyas and getting more, but is there some more permanent type place? We'll ask people around us, have you found? These would be all the different devatas. We may ask, where are you getting all these things? How you're giving me this life in this beautiful celestial planets? Did you create this? No, I didn't create it. Who created it? My master created it. Oh, who is your master? Well, we are the limbs of Vishnu. Vishnu is our master. Really, tell me about Vishnu. Oh, Vishnu is this eternal person. Eternal? Where does he live? Well, he resides in Shweta-dvip, but his eternal home is in Vaikuntha Lok. Really? What is Vaikuntha? Vaikuntha, free. In this way, this inquiry grows. But the problem is, it may not. And we may become settled. Because we think, wow, life is better than it used to be. And we stop looking. And that's what happens in this world, right? Those who have wealth, they have health, and they have good relationships. Bringing them to see Krishna is difficult. Why? I'm enjoying. Why would I go serve Krishna? Even though they're going through old age, disease, death is coming, difficulties are there, but they see in such small proportions that the possibility of coming. That's why the devatas who have knowledge, they actually pray to come back to this material world. Why? Because in the heavenly planets, it's so difficult to think about Krishna and to progress in devotion because the things are so opulent. So they pray, shed me of all this opulence. It is blinding me. So it can happen through this process, but it's very difficult.
Yes, this process we understand, but even in bhakti also, when we come new to bhakti, everything is like mechanical. We have to do chanting, we have to do the process, all that thing. Even that is also like almost same. I mean, it is not same, but for us, like it's still mechanical because we are from the low level. So
But
still
what-
it is mechanical. But so even that mechanical thing also should turn into love.
It must.
But how does that?
Yeah, so the mechanical process of bhakti is called Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti means we chant, we go to temple, we render service. Why? Because it's coming under the instruction of Guru and Sadhu and Shastra. So then the inclination to chant is coming not from my own pure desires, but by the instruction. Right? And Krishna says, or in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu says, Kriti Sadyat Bhavat Sadya Bhava Sa Saranabhida Nitya Siddhasya Bhavesa Prakritam Riddha Sadyata. By doing this sadhana, this sadhana bhakti, what happens? By doing sadhana bhakti, the heart will purify and the dormant love will emerge, will awaken within the heart. So why am mechanically chanting? So that the love of chanting will eventually come out. Why am mechanically reading Prabhupada's books? So that the dormant love will come out. So when we are doing our Vaidhi sadhana, meaning these regulated practices of sadhana, our desire and goal must be that it comes to this love performance. And this is called Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. This means spontaneous devotional. Spontaneous devotional service means no one has to tell me to go to Mangalarti. I'm so eager to go, I want to go. No one tells me to chant my rounds. I'm so enthusiastic, I want to chant my rounds. No one says you must read 10 pages of Srimad Bhagavatam every day. I can't wait to get my hands in Srimad Bhagavatam. So the processes are the same, right? Chanting, reading, service, attending art. But the impetus to do is now coming from internal. How it happened? Purification of the heart. So the mechanical process of bhakti, this Vaidhi sadhana, it's not quite mechanical because it's following on the order of Guru. It brings about that when all the anarthas are removed from the heart, the impurities, the anartha nivritti comes. That stage comes, all the anarthas are removed, then the natural ability of the heart will come out. Just like if I have a diamond, right? Its natural ability is to luster. But if it's covered with mud, it's not shining. So what do I have to do? I have to remove the layers of mud. Then the natural. So this Vaidhi sadhana bhakti is practicing, is removing all of the anarthas so that the natural spontaneous, we are naturally spontaneously attracted to Krishna. No one has to teach us how to love Krishna. It is natural to who we are. But it is submerged within from all the contamination of the heart. So, but if I say, well, I'll chant when I really feel the desire to chant, and sometimes that comes, right? I'm not ready, I want to when I'm desire. The problem is that desire won't come until we purify. Well, how to purify? By chanting. So now, Prabhu, Mataji, please chant. Please chant. Okay, I'll chant, fine. That's good. Keep chanting. Did you do your rounds today? Yes. How's your chanting going? Right? We face these types of inquisitions. What is the goal? That we stay chanting. Why? So that someday no one will have to ask me. Because I'm so spontaneously enthused. But until then, I beg people to help me make sure I don't slip on my chanting. Because right now the impetus is external, meaning someone is guiding. But soon it will become internal. Right? So that should be the goal. In doing our bhakti, doing our chanting, yes, Krishna, please let me understand the great taste of chanting the holy names. Right now I'm doing because I promised my Guru. And I know he's right. Everything he has told me is right. So I know he's also right when he says chant rounds. So I'm doing.
But in material world, it will not change, no Prabhu. It's only this
Spiritual.
process will work only in spiritual, because we are under the mercy of Guru and Krishna. That mechanical thing can turn into love. But in material things, it will not.
It may not. It takes longer. The mechanical karma kanda process can turn into love.
But it will reach only up to Vishnu.
It'll reach up until Vishnu, and then from there up to Krishna. Because we'll say, Vishnu, where you came from? Then we'll come to Krishna. Krishna, where you came from? Anadir Adir. Govinda.
I just wanted to add, like even in the mechanical process of Krishna consciousness, all the things that we are doing, like chanting and other things, I feel we also get support from Krishna too, because he reciprocates, and that actually encourages us. Just like demigods thing, the worship, they are getting the benefits, material benefits. Here we are getting the reciprocation from Krishna.
Otherwise we wouldn't do it.
Do it more.
Otherwise we wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? If Guru said chant, and then we chanted and nothing happened, it's very difficult to remain faith. Krishna knows. So he reciprocates. He gives us that by the happiness from bhakti, we do more bhakti. When we do more bhakti, what happens? More happiness. More happiness, and that cycle continues. So there is that reciprocation. But we should have the goal that our bhakti should not be mechanical. It has to be an expression of our love. Our chanting should be an expression of our love. We should endeavor to see when we'll see Krishna dancing on our tongue. I heard he is dancing on my tongue, but I don't see. When I'll see. Okay.
First of all, Rupesh Prabhu has said, every time we hear you, Prabhu, we get all positive vibes and learn something new. And like
Srila Prabhupada.
Somebody has asked, after this live, where can I get this video?
And they're stored on the Facebook page and Bhagavad Gita page, but on the page HG Nitya Krishna Das, you can get all the videos, past videos and current videos under the videos link.
Preeti Sharma, she has mentioned that beautiful lecture. Can I have your email?
Yes, we'll email you.
And she also asked, Guruji, please answer my query. What is the way to make you my revered Guru?
That is out of your own kindness. Srila Prabhupada is our Param Guru, who is guiding us. Everything we are hearing here is simply repeating what Srila Prabhupada has said. And Srila Prabhupada has empowered great personalities in our ISKCON movement to be gurus, and they can guide you. And our job in following those gurus is to simply present that message. And so keep chanting, keep reading, and keep associating. And Krishna will bring the perfection for you. Any other comments, questions? Yeah.
Through this process of chanting, reading, will this faith thing will come to you and ask you some questions that what you are doing is correct, and because it's always like you dig deeper, a lot of things comes to you.
Mm-hmm.
So how to understand this situation?
I'm not sure I understood the question. Can you
Like whatever the process that we do, chanting, 16 rounds, reading, some kind of disturbance comes like, are you doing correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Is it right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you are investing a lot of time in this.
Yeah.
So how to answer this to yourself?
Yeah. Once somebody asked Prabhupada this question. He said, Prabhupada, what if this is all a hoax? And Prabhupada answered, and now everyone expected he would answer some deep philosophical proof, and he said, are you enjoying your time in Krishna consciousness? He said, yes. Then if it's all a hoax, you still have not lost.
That's a fair thing.
Right? That in and of itself. Am I more happy today than I was pre-Krishna consciousness? If so, then what's the loss? Nothing. Now there's much more to gain than that, but at the most fundamental of our doubts, and these doubts will come. Why? Because the doubts have been for millions of lifetimes. So the doubts will be there. And how to rid ourselves of our doubt? Acquire more knowledge. Acquire more information and experience. But it's natural. And don't become demotivated. I can still doubt this. No, it's going to happen. And that's why association is so important. Because sometimes doubts can lead one astray, and we've seen it. They'll practice for years, and then all of a sudden, the doubts continue to haunt, and it leads them astray. So association, continued reading, continued service, engagement in the temple, that gives us the strength to overcome our doubts. Because Krishna says you must slash your doubts. And he says slash them with the weapon of knowledge. So knowledge will burn to ashes all of our doubts. Right? So yeah, that'll come. But at the end of the day, in the most practical, simple way, are you having fun? And if you are, is it a good investment? Yeah. So that's it. Any more questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. I forgot to talk about this. We'll talk about this for a few minutes.